I have experienced that a woman really blossoms only after 35 years of age. My youth and adolescence were all hectic: studies, life in a student dormitory, getting married at an early age, having a baby. And now that my daughter is 15, all the fuss with studies is far behind me, and the present is stability in the family and at work. I finally got to think about myself, my desires and needs. My inner changes like this really pleased my husband, with whom I feel like we are experiencing our second honeymoon after 16 years of life together. Trying not to limit my desires and fantasies, I revised all my taboos in intimate life, which significantly diversified our love games. We tried almost everything: role-playing, cross-dressing, even partially tying. And now it came to the desire to try sex in an unusual place. Let me tell you right away, my husband was my first and last man. It never occurred to me that I could change, or that I should look for another partner. So all the experiments in my new life, I proposed it to him, my beloved Nicholas. To be honest, I thought he would not be surprised by any of my suggestions, but the discussion of making love in an unusual place has caused him doubts. He said, "Nada, well, we are not some youngsters, are we? We have our own apartment. In a pinch we can afford a room in a good hotel. Why did you choose a movie theater?" That's how to explain to him that women sometimes want to feel like a character in a movie. I don't even remember what kind of movie it was anymore. I watched it 100 years ago, but I remember that back then I wasn't at all interested in a beautiful scene of intimacy in a movie theater. But in my new life I tried all the things I had previously forbidden myself. So when I chose an unusual place for sex, the choice was unambiguous: the cinema hall. My Nicholas rarely refused me anything and finally agreed to try to diversify the place of our intimacy, and even bought tickets in advance for the last row and the last show. We chose a movie theater in a distant part of the neighborhood, so that we would not even accidentally meet someone we knew. You never know. And at the appointed time we went to see a movie. What was remarkable was that we had not discussed any of the details before. Looking ahead, I can say that each of us imagined this in his own way, and these ideas were radically different from each other. Well, in the meantime, we walked into the almost empty hall, found our row and sat in our seats. It was a local cinema, not a remarkable film which had already finished its rental. Most likely it was the reason of small number of spectators, but it was just in time for us. As usual, the commercials and trailers for other movies were shown at the time indicated in the tickets. The bustle in the half-darkened hall was ending. It was obvious that some people switched off the volume on their phones and were ready to immerse themselves in watching the next masterpiece of the movie industry. 5 and then 10 minutes of the movie passed, and I was beginning to think that Nicholas had changed his mind or was really into the movie. But I knew exactly the purpose of our visit here. Of course, I wanted it to be like in the movie, and the man himself began molestations, but apparently at his age my husband had completely forgotten how to pursue a woman outside the apartment. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. First, I slipped my hand on his arm, and then on his leg, from which Nikolai shuddered, but remained seated, as if he had fallen asleep. I decided that a romantic kiss was the logical thing to do, so I tried to lean toward my husband. And then the first, and, alas, not the last disappointment awaited me. The armrests of the seats are clearly designed for people to watch movies, not to kiss each other. This armrest hit my stomach area so hard that I even tensed up a little. In general, if you decide to repeat our feat, keep in mind, a normal kiss is possible only if you much moved on the seat forward. Another 20 minutes I thought about how to circumvent this armrest to implement what for the sake of which we were perempsy through the city in another area. Judging by the reaction Nikolayasha, he sincerely hoped that I would change my mind. Most likely after his 35 years he is not in his prime, but a period of shyness. I couldn't think of anything better to do, so I decided to sit on my husband's lap and see how to proceed. Quietly rising from my seat, I tried to sit down. I have to say one thing. I am not overweight, but these damn chairs are clearly not designed for 2 adults. I fidgeted for about a minute to get comfortable, frankly beginning to regret that I had started all this. But the law of the real meanness was not even in the uncomfortable chairs, but in another. Literally a third of the movie in the theater completely turned off the light, including the screen. Immediately there was shouting and even whistling from the young people sitting in the front rows. The theater worker, in complete darkness, tried to say loudly that the hiccup in the movie would not take more than 5 minutes, and asked everyone to stay in their seats. The disgruntled cries were heard less and less, until a painfully familiar voice drew us in. You should get free tickets for one more show for something like this. Or at least hand out condoms, since you create an atmosphere of intimacy. I was already back in my chair in the darkness, waiting for only one thing to happen, for the lights to come on. More than sex in a strange place, I wanted to know whether or not I was mistaken in recognizing that voice as my daughter's. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That evening our Anya had to stay at home because she referred to a headache. She didn't even go for a walk. She had known about our plans to go to the movies for a long time, but some boy from the neighboring school invited her to see a movie too. She went about our way. In order not to risk meeting us, she chose a movie theater in a completely different end of town. My husband and I watched the movie in total silence and almost without movement. I told her not to go straight to Anya's place when the lights came on, so as not to embarrass my daughter in front of her friends. After the session, I just dialed her number and asked her to come to the cab, where we were waiting for her. I can't even imagine what could have happened if we all had sex with my husband like that in the movie theater and our own daughter caught us. Although, judging by her shouting in the audience, she certainly wouldn't have been surprised. But I did have a serious conversation with her about how to behave in public places. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video if you like it. Also put a bell so you don't miss new videos. See you soon.